morning, everybody. My name is Tony Morrow, and welcome to Morning Brew. This morning, we have a fantastic guest that is going to help us talk about, understand, and come up with strategies to deal with difficult people. I know that we've all dealt with difficult people. So hopefully today you will be able to gather and take away some real nuggets on how to be able to understand how these experiences will negatively impact your projects, your work, your personal life, and will give you strategies to be able to help you be successful in dealing with difficult people going forward. My guest, Amber McMillan, today is going to be able to help us with that, and we will get to her in just a second. But before we do, let's get the salivation going in your mouth about that cup of coffee that you've got in your hand, and let's roll the intro. My guest today is Amber McMillan, a friend, a colleague, and now a guest on Morning Brew. Amber, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So for all of those of you who don't know Amber, Amber is, I met Amber originally as an instructor on a project management course that I was taking at a local university here in Victoria. She is a former president of the local chapter here, but that is just a small fraction of the accolades which she holds. Amber, can you give us a 2-minute introduction or origin as to who you are and the kinds of things that you do?
Yeah, I would love to. I, first and foremost, happy to join you here, and I respectfully acknowledge that I live, work, and play on the unceded traditional and ancestral territory of the Lekwungen and Wasanic people. And I honor them, and I'm grateful for them, and I'm grateful to be here on their land. I have had an interesting career. I grew up originally, I'm from Ontario. Aren't most of us West Coasters from somewhere else? And in my youth, went to some fantastic schools, did a lot of interesting education, and then sort of decided to travel the world. So I did that for a long time, always anchored in the not-for-profit sector. But my original first job was actually as a pastry chef. So I started out in food. Not a lot of people know that about me. But the chef part of me is where my origin story of project manager comes from. Because if you've ever worked in food and or in any kind of kitchen catering, project management is the only way to literally keep your head above water. It's about, time and schedule and certainly cost. And so that's where my love for project management really was founded. And then through my travels, living all over the world, and then finally settling on the West Coast here in Canada. Been here about 16 years and here worked primarily in the not-for-profit sector. I am, though, full disclosure, I am an entrepreneur. So I am always side hustling something. And my side hustles often look like projects, both for myself and for other people. But I have a passion for people. So if you go to my website, it's, projects change people. Those are sort of my 3 areas of, and I hesitate to say expertise because the only reason I know anything is because I've lived long enough and I've made enough mistakes. That's basically how I'm able to show up every day and know anything. My own journey to knowing myself and my awareness that I hold within me, like we all do, passions for things. And I'm passionate about people, all different types of opportunities to work with people. I've been involved in food banks. I've been involved in street work. I've been involved in, the psychology of supporting people through tough times. I currently am employed and run a community center. We do childcare. We do youth programming. We do senior support, family support. So that's my heart really, I guess, is big. And I say that not apologetically. I just know in the world, the professional world that I spin in, oftentimes the heart and the humanity seems to be lacking in the office. It's kind of like, oh no, we're here to work. We're not here to be people or humans. And I have discovered over my career, almost 30 years, I guess now, that boy, we really are disadvantaged when we think that way. Because I've still yet to meet one person that can cease to be human, even for a second.
Well,
whether they're at home or at work or anything.
Yeah, and when we talk about people, which is, of course, as you're describing your focus,
Yeah.
we talk about dealing with people and sort of the communication between us. And that's how, we first met, was talking about communication, and specifically in the context of project management with communications management. But today, we're talking about dealing with difficult people. I'm sure everyone can think of an example in their life of dealing with a difficult person. It could be a parent, it could be a colleague, it could be, another kind of person in their life. But certainly there are difficult people all around us in one way or another. So, that word difficult can sort of be ambiguous. When we're talking about, or when we're defining what a difficult person is, what does that mean in this context? Like, what is a difficult person?
It's a good question. So first of all, I think, it's subjective. It depends on who you're asking, because let's face it, I am often difficult. And depending on who you ask, I'm always difficult. If you ask my life partner, they'll tell you I'm primarily difficult. If you ask my children, yeah, pretty much always difficult. But, if you ask some of my friends or people that I know marginally, they're like, oh no, she's great. Yeah, well, just wait. Right? Just give it a minute. So when we talk about difficult people, and I think particularly in the project management context or in a professional context, what we're talking about is, any one person or group of people that needs much effort and skill on your part to deal with. That's a difficult person. That's how I define a difficult person. So let's face it, it's a moving target. So if you come into the office on Monday, the target might be on Joe. Joe's difficult today. And then you go in on Tuesday and now it's Sally. Sally's got the target on Sally. It depends. And depending, certainly when it comes to stakeholder management and project management, in your stakeholder register, you may have, scads of stakeholders that you're identifying up front that will likely be difficult, but sometimes they're not, and sometimes they are, and then that can change. So part of the trickiness of dealing with difficult people is that someone who you think isn't difficult can become difficult immediately. And that's where, harken back to the never met anyone who even for a second ceased to be human yet. And this is why dealing with difficult people, you can't just say, oh, well, they're a difficult person. Maybe sometimes. There is always that story, that legend or that tall tale of the one person that works somewhere who's always difficult. But quite frankly, even they have moments of redemption. Mm-hmm. So because of that, I think I can't tell you, Tony, how to deal with that one difficult person, because that person might not be difficult that one time. All we can talk about is, let's paint a picture of when the difficulty happens and presents itself. What do we do? How do we handle it? And why do we care? Can we avoid it? I have a lot of people say, oh, I just ignore those people. What? Really? How'd that work out for you when you blatantly ignored that stakeholder? Did they ever come back to bite you? Was there any point in the project cycle or life cycle where you went, probably should have dealt with that? And usually, of course, lessons learned is, oh man, I wish we had sat down and made a conscious choice to think about how to handle that stakeholder, because when it hit the fan, they derailed a whole portion of that phase. And, that can happen when we just avoid difficult people. So,
well, when we talk like in that description or that definition of difficult, it was very interesting, because I think a lot of us think of difficult as being negative, in the sense of difficult people are always like a thorn in your side, or they're,
Yeah.
there's a negative context there. But the way you described it, and I really like that, is that they are individuals that require a lot of work, or maybe a disproportional amount of work. So if you can
Yes.
think of that sort of that individual in your life, a diva perhaps in one way or another, that you have to really kind of pamper, or, pad their ego, make them feel, or give them so much attention that it takes away from the other aspects of what you do professionally or personally, or basically reduces your ability to be effective and the overall effectiveness of your team or your project or whatever it is. And that could be anybody. That could be a team member like Joe, for example, or that individual who comes in the morning and just is like, woke up on the wrong side of bed.
That's right.
Or it could be that stakeholder, like a partner that you're working with, a collaborator who just needs a lot of your time to be able to, like, I don't know, it could be anything from they really need to feel important, or they need to have their opinion validated, or
Yeah.
held up on a pedestal all the time, or whatever the case is. So there's sort of a broad definition there, but generally speaking, difficult people are individuals that, or perhaps even organizations that, require a disproportional amount of attention. And the
Yeah.
impact of that, what kind of impact do we see in our projects, our teams, and what we do? What kind of impact do we see from those black holes of energy that just suck from us and take, that
Okay.
disproportionate
So,
amount of
so
time?
So I did this experiment once. I have to tell you, I was at a conference. I forget. I think I was speaking, but I was just in awe of listening to everyone else speaking. And this guy was saying, do a cost analysis. And it's interesting
Mm,
because I'm not necessarily the PM who's always interested in the technical. I'm definitely the visionary. I'm macro all the time, and so I know where my gifts and skills are. But he worked through this exercise. Like, he literally took like a stick it notepad and he was like, okay, take out a pen and start writing down the actual cost of like every 15-minute increment that you're paid, and that person is paid, and that person is paid, and that person is paid, to add up the cost of the total kind of investment or output, fiscal output for this conversation. And he
mm,
was talking about the difficult conversation. And I remember at the time going like, yeah, of course it's a lot of money. But he really encouraged us to brass tacks it. And so I was like, okay, like, I'm not really a money person. I'm not really always thinking about the numbers, but like, okay, I can do this. So I got out this little sticky note and I started writing down, okay, on average, what's that person make an hour? We divide it by 15-minute increments. And I started to actually calculate and do a cost analysis on how much money, just the money, it costs to handle not just a difficult person, but difficult situations. I mean, this could be a conflict situation. This could be simply something that stops the project for, like I said, it could be 15 minutes. It could be a day and a half.
mm.
We're seized up. I'm telling you, I was so impacted by that little sticky note exercise and the awareness that I didn't even have to Google it. I was just off the top of my head coming up with these numbers, sketching it down, adding it all up, thinking, oh yeah, then that person had to be called in. Yeah, so then they were here. We're talking thousands of dollars in very, very short conversations when you add up what it's costing every individual to contribute and or to be unsuccessful in
Mm.
moving the mission or the project work package forward, just in that stall. And that's where I went, okay, I have to make change, because I want to be an exceptional project manager. I want to leverage my awareness and my gifts and skills in benefit to delivering whatever the project is, efficiently. I mean, that's what we do. That's the goal. And I recognized that I was thinking that difficult people were just a part of the project and I just found little ways and whatever, but I hadn't really owned how much it cost me. And when you own that, For me, like I said, I'm not always the detail and the person who's thinking about the numbers. But when I made it that tangible, I got humbled.
Mm.
And I went, okay, what am I going to do about it? What am I going to do? How can I see change here in how I deal with difficult people? And of course, the fringe benefit here, Tony, is it really helped my home life as well. It all of a sudden expanded my ability to have decent friendships and deal with my parents and my, extended family, because the benefit of growing my ability to handle difficult people or difficult conversations meant it didn't just work at work. It worked everywhere.
Yeah, and
And
that's huge because, like,
yeah,
again, like, obviously this is a conversation, a context around professional and
yeah,
project management kind of framework. But this is like, these are strategies, this is impact that affects you across the spectrum of your life, whether it's professional or personal or otherwise. So thinking about that in the sense of so we've talked about what difficult people are, we've defined the kind of impact that they have, but what do we need to consider when dealing with these difficult people? Because it's not always within your realm or scope of control to necessarily deal with a difficult boss, or
yeah.
maybe there's a critical partner that you have that you really can't do anything about. So how do you deal with, or what are the things that we need to consider when dealing with these difficult people?
Okay, so I'm going to use a word that I think you're going to love, and it's ninja.
Yeah.
That's the word. It's ninja. And I think in my cultural understanding of ninja, it is simply this ability to kind of, in a stealth way, be equipped to handle stuff in the background, be ready to predict someone's move, and or to have the ability to leverage what you bring, to have influence on those difficult people or on the actions of others. And how do you become a ninja when it comes to dealing with difficult people? Well, unfortunately, and I really mean this, because honestly, you can drag me kicking and screaming to, self-awareness. Like, I don't, like, every time I do self-awareness work, I'm just dismayed at myself. I'm just like, really? Like, I suck that much? Like, so hear me when I say this. I am not saying let's increase our self-awareness because it's so wonderful. No, it's awful work. It's difficult work, but it starts with you, because you, and by you, I don't mean you, Tony, I mean any of us, the royal you, it starts with your own awareness of your difficulty. And in order for you to become and to embody this ninja self, you really need to understand you. So when you walk into a room, an office, a project meeting, how do you present yourself? And how does your presenting yourself make everyone else in the room feel? I'll give you an example. I did a huge project, had to do with like a conference, a training, big conference. It was a 3-day weekend, great, wonderful. Fast forward to the end of the conference, it was very successful, or so I thought. And, accolades, everyone loved it. And then I had a call. One person asked to speak with me privately, and I was like, sure, yeah, of course, whatever. I'm riding high. It's a great time, project success. This person took me behind closed doors, shut the door, and then railed on me about an aspect of the time together that I was completely blindsided by. This person broke me in half with their perception of how difficult I had been. And I say their perception because it's not really about whether I was difficult or not. In the moment, I wanted to defend myself. I wanted to be argumentative and to say, no, and this is your fault. This is your perception. But for some reason, and I mean this, I don't know how, by some grace in the moment, I shut my mouth and I listened. And I realized that my actions, unbeknownst to me, had created an environment where this individual felt horrible and went as far as to say not just felt horrible, but was made to feel less than everyone else for the entire 3 days. And like I said, I would normally tell them they were wrong. I would explain to them that was not my intention, and I would say, you got it wrong. But for some reason in this moment, I didn't. I just shut up. I think it was because I was so floored because the success was up here and this person was so bad, so low, so upset. It took me aback. And the person left the conversation with me angry. And for all I know, they're still angry with me today. So I was never able to resolve that with them. But what I was aware of was, I don't get myself. I thought I was all cream cheesy all 3 days. Everything's wonderful. Oh, wow, Amber, Amber, Amber. And I realized, for 99% of people. But the one, I had the opposite effect. So unfortunately, I had to do some work on myself. What I discovered was I needed to increase something called emotional intelligence or emotional quotient. And I know this is a really popular buzzword and everyone's all, oh yeah, emotional intelligence. But what I recognized about it was I needed to increase my self-awareness of how I presented, how I made people feel. And yes, I can measure the whole conference on the 99%. And for there, it's full project success. But the 1% for that moment at that time in my life was a tool that I was able to use to kind of push me to do a bit of self-awareness work. And what I realized was, I do rub people the wrong way. And I did say some things that I could see from that person's perspective would have been interpreted a different way. And I didn't intend it, but I was still responsible for how I made that person feel. Like I said, I couldn't solve that problem, but it helped me do the work. And then I realized, what, how do I care how I make people feel? And to be honest, my answer in the short term was not really. I don't really care. But then I realized, I do have to care because I want the success, whether it's self-centered or whether it's because the project, requires that success or that's what I'm trying to deliver. I want people to feel like I can handle them and or provide to them value in a project environment. And if there's skills I can acquire, there's techniques I can use to leverage that, then I do want that. And hence began this whole journey of self-exploration. And so in raising my emotional intelligence, it wasn't because I wanted to sit around a fire and hold hands and sing Kumbaya, although sometimes that's fine. For me, it was strategy. It was like, I want to be a ninja. I want to walk into a room and I want to have a list of idiosyncrasies written down either in my mind or on a sheet of paper about all the people in the room that I already know stuff about. Why? To manipulate them? No. So that I can deliver to them value in the moment. So that I can be seen as actually understanding, having listened to them, to help provide to them what they need. And, as a PM, that's the job, that's the role. And for me, it started with raising my own emotional intelligence, my own self-awareness. And when I teach stakeholder management, not in every iteration, but in one particular, at the master's level, I always encourage my students and anyone that is participating in the education with me, write that idiosyncrasy list. Make sure that you are empowered. You as a professional are empowered by the knowledge of the others that you have to deal with, because they will present themselves as difficult sometimes. And when they do, something as simple as knowing how they take their coffee on Morning Brew makes a difference, because they never cease to be human. And when you deliver value at any level in those tough, difficult moments, it actually what? Well, it serves those individuals. And when you serve an individual and you don't serve yourself in a difficult conversation, immediately you create an environment where you are more likely to be heard and the other person is more likely to hear you. So for me, it's about that leveraging the knowledge. And like I said, it's not about going to school on someone. It's about making observations, making notes, being aware, raising my own self-awareness. What that immediately did is it made me aware of how to look for others' kind of idiosyncrasies. Because as I realized who I was, I could see, oh, I see. Oh, they don't do what I do exactly, but they do it this way. Oh, note to self. And for me, that unlocked how to, well, first of all, how to walk into a room and not feel like I needed to avoid the difficult people or the difficult conversations. And I think for me, it's surrounded by this other 4-letter word that starts with an F. And it's not the one you're thinking of. It's fear. I made a very clear decision in my professional career, probably about 7 years ago, that I absolutely refused to make any conscious decision based out of fear anymore. I wouldn't build my risk register because I was afraid of all the risk. No. I would feel the fear, and I feel it, but I would then use it. I would leverage the fear and equip myself, because I was afraid, equip myself with tools and techniques and use the knowledge that I had or the subject matter experts to my right and to my left to empower me so that I wasn't making a decision out of fear, that I wasn't avoiding something because I was afraid of it, that I was actually willing to meet it head on. A big piece of this also for me, quite honestly, was I had to learn to apologize and be genuinely sorry for my own difficult behavior in situations. And it's funny because sometimes, of course, in my mind, when I'm dealing with a difficult person, I'm like, I wish they'd just shut up and say they're sorry. But I'm aware that they maybe can't do that. But in my mind, I'm thinking like, they don't know the power that comes from taking responsibility for your own actions in that moment and saying you're sorry. It's very powerful. And for me, the only way I ever got there was just this journey to self-exploration and realizing that I was a difficult person. So if I could figure out how to mitigate my own issues and challenges and difficulties, that would help me think of how to do that with others. And so I say to people, people say, oh, but I have emotional intelligence. And I say, okay, well, ask yourself 4 questions. Are you argumentative?
Yes.
Do you have emotional outbursts?
Yes.
Do you blame others?
Try not to.
And do you speak instead of listening?
Well,
and if you ask yourself those 4 questions, if you score poorly in those questions, you don't have EQ. Those are the tests. If you can do those things, and it's funny because I can be argumentative. Oh man, I can emotionally outburst. Absolutely, I can do all of those things, and I can talk way more than I listen. But I have learned to do those things, and when I am doing those things, I'm proactively being emotionally intelligent, right? So, people say to me, oh, how do I do that? Well, yeah, you can read a book. Go read Daniel Goleman's book. I mean, he's the founder of EQ. Read it. It's a good book. But it's not about that. It's about, well, what can you do with that? And so ninja it. If you're out there going, oh, an emotional intelligence. No, I'm not talking about the soft, squishy stuff. And it is there, I'll tell you that. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking you're a professional. You're at the top of your game. You know how to run a project inwards, outward, backward, forwards. But if you have that little fear of how to deal with a difficult stakeholder, or if you have moments where you really feel derailed because of those conversations, make yourself a ninja. And EQ is where you do that. So research and do some reading and then ask yourself those questions. And like, for me, I'm a big talker, like literally like cover your mouth in a meeting or two, just as like a technique, and listen to what you hear and then leverage what you hear. Leverage it. It's strategy, and I mean, I hate to use this word because I think this is we often talk about power in the workplace. and it's like wielded like a hammer. We are talking about power here, but I think that subversive sort of strategic ninja work. Yes, you have power, but it's actually influence. You don't have to have authority or power over anyone to influence them. So use this, increasing your own self-awareness and then being more aware of others and who they are and what they need from you. And then approach difficult conversations or difficult people from that perspective. And it's a game changer, my friend. It's a game changer.
So the thing that really struck me about everything you said is the taking ownership part. Basically, instead of being a passenger in this experience of dealing with difficult people, take ownership of it. Become that ninja, that hyper flexible, adaptable, stealthy individual who can influence a situation, whether it's bringing in that coffee to make Joe a little bit happier in the morning, checking in with people, or giving that client, that stakeholder, that partner, that little thing that they need to influence a positive outcome, a positive relationship, and a more productive experience for you, for your colleagues, and of course for your project. So, I mean, there's a lot there. And, for all of you watching, Amber just dropped a series of bombs there when it comes to, nuggets and knowledge and little things that we can take away from this conversation. But yes, increasing our self-awareness, building that tool set, that muscle memory to be able to exercise that cliche EQ or emotional intelligence aspect so that you can better respond in an environment, in a situation, and try and sort of decrease that demand on you individually from that sort of demanding partner that you're interacting with. Amber, this conversation, I feel like we could go on for hours talking about these different things, and I'm sure we will in future episodes have more conversations about different ways that we can communicate and tactics that we can use. But for today, all of our professional viewers need to get on with the rest of their day. So thank you very much for everybody for joining us. Amber, thank you so much for sharing your nuggets of knowledge with the Morning Brew audience this morning. So everybody, thank you so much. I'm going to throw to you to have that last cup of coffee before you get on with your day. Thank you so much for joining us here on Morning Brew, and we will see you next Thursday.